Good evening, everyone. Ryan Mitchell here. I'm the Chief Connection Officer of Batch Connect. I'm excited to announce that April 2024 is going to be our first month of live events for our connectors, which includes the coaching call, the speed connecting, the open connecting events. More can be found on batch-connect.com with information on how to either join the community or become a connector. This evening is our coaching call with Victor Lee, who's a resident networking coach. Victor is a captivating and highly sought after speaker, guest analyst, and workshop leader with 3 Ivy League degrees. He shares a brilliant, iconoclastic insight and wisdoms with engaging anecdotes and examples drawn from his extensive experience in media, technology, and marketing. Victor's relaxed style and wit easily inspire and engage audiences, filled with C-suite execs, new grads, and everyone in between. He's also the creator and host of Things I Didn't Learn at Harvard, a Spotify top 10 global podcast. And please welcome Victor Lee.
Thanks very much, Ryan. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate your including me in the launch of this very exciting new networking organization, Batch Connect. I think it's going to be very instrumental in helping people all over the world actually learn how to connect better and make connections. So I think it'll be a great group of folks, and I'm happy to be able to try to hopefully add to the benefits people get out of your group by providing some information about how to network better. Because basically, let's face it, that's what we're all here for, to do networking, connecting, and whatever else you might want to call it. So today is the first day of a year-long sessions, set of year-long sessions that we have planned to teach people how to become better connectors, better networkers. And so what I want to do in today's session is really kind of set the stage, and then we'll get into a fair amount of detail today, but we're really going to do a deep dive into networking starting next month. So let's get rolling. So the first question, obviously, for anybody who's watching this video is, what will you learn? Right? What are you going to get out of this session? So what we're going to do is really answer three questions. Question number one is, why network? Right? You really need a purpose to be networking, especially if you want to be doing more of it, or even if you just want to watch the rest of this video. There's got to be a purpose to what you're trying to accomplish through networking. So that's question number one. Question number two is, I think we all generally understand why people need to network, and we all generally understand what networking is. But let's really dive into it, because I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what networking actually consists of. And then the third, and this is something we'll be talking about not just tonight, but really throughout the next 12 months, is how to network. And that's really the crux of these sessions. And that's really the essence of why Ryan asked me to join the group, to helpfully bring some of my perspectives and experiences in networking for the benefit of the members and the connectors in his group, in Batch Connect. Okay, so let's start with the first question. Why network? Right? Why are we all here? Why do we go to these networking events? Why do we have one-on-one Zoom calls with people? What's the point of all this? So I think the simplest answer is that, we're all essentially professionals, business professionals. We're here to make a sale. And that sale can be either an insurance policy you're trying to sell somebody. It can be a product or a service you're trying to sell somebody. Or even if you're in the nonprofit world, you're essentially making a sale, right? You might be trying to get a donor to contribute money to your nonprofit. You might be trying to get support for your nonprofit. Have people show up at your event. So in many cases, what you're essentially doing is making a sale, even if you don't think of it in sort of conventional terms, right? You're trying to convince somebody, you're trying to persuade somebody to do something in exchange for money, or because it's for a good cause, or for some other reason. And really, the best way to do that is through people that you've met and put into your network. So that's reason number one. Why network? Make a sale. Let's be transactional and mercenary about it. The second question often is, many cases, is you're hired. You want to get a job. How often are you can, there's so many ways to look for a job. You can answer ads. You can look on LinkedIn. You can go on Indeed. But often the best way to get a job is to tell your friends that you're looking. And so they know you, they know what you're looking for, they know what you're good at. And so often they can be a tremendous source of potential jobs that are out there. And also they can also recommend you for jobs. And so I find that happens a lot. And so the candidates who come recommended, candidates who come through somebody's network often have a big leg up over somebody that just answers an Indeed posting or a LinkedIn job request. So a second big reason to network is to get a job. But the third and kind of overarching concept of networking is because it's really a fundamental building block in advancing your career. So on this little diagram here, you can see a lot of the different elements that go into your career, right? Your education, experience, knowledge and skill, training, your ability, setting goals. But one thing that ties it all together is networking. You can really use your career to build your network and also to help move your career forward. So if you have the right education, if you have the right experience, you want people to know about that and get the word out about you so that you can leverage things like education and experience to move your career forward. So I think those are the three big reasons to network. It's make a sale, because we're all basically in business in one form or another. It can be to get a job, or it can be to advance your career. And also, I mean, I didn't add this, it's just a lot of fun. You meet great people along the way, and really, we're all social animals. And I think it's important to interact with people, but also know how to interact with people in the right way. Okay, so that was the first big question. Why network? The second question, now that we're all convinced, I assume, that networking is good, and we're going to talk later about how to network properly, the first thing we have to do is describe what is networking. And I think this is where there's a lot of misconceptions. And this is also, as you'll see, why a lot of people don't enjoy networking. In fact, I think some people would rather go to the dentist, than apologies to any dentists out there, than do networking. And really having it done right, networking can be a lot of fun. I'm not sure going to the dentist that anything can actually make going to the dentist fun. So what is networking? For our purposes, I think there's three stages of it. Number one is meeting new people, right? And it's the building block of networking, because let's face it, if you don't meet any new people, you're not going to be doing a lot of networking. But at the same time, I think one of the problems is that people often think of networking as being only meeting new people, right? And so they can go to a large event in person and there's lots of people and they collect lots of business cards, and they think they've been, quote, networking, right? But that's only the first step. Or you sit in on a Zoom call and there's 20 people, 40 people, 100 people, and everybody does their little 30-second commercial. Maybe they put their information in the chat, and then they're done. And when the meeting is over, it's out of sight, out of mind. And they think, well, I've met all these people, and therefore I've been networking. And to be perfectly blunt, and hopefully one of the things you'll learn about me as we go through these sessions is I do try to be pretty blunt and tell people the honest truth. That's not networking. That's just a waste of time. So meeting is critical. It's the first step, but it is not the only step. Okay. So that initial handshake in person or virtual is just where the networking begins. And actually, I hate to admit this, it's also where the hard work begins. Okay, so now that you've met, what is step two? Step two is you have to nurture your network. You have to nurture the connections that you have made. It's just like when you bring a plant home from the store. You can't just dig a hole in the garden, stick the plant in there, and hope that something will grow. It's going to take time. It's going to take attention. It's going to take care and love. And it's going to take a lot of effort on your part. But it is going to pay off. So that little seedling will become an oak tree or whatever else it is that you need, that you wanted to plant. But it is going to take a little bit of work. And that is also a very important part of networking. And then the third part, this is the payoff, is if you've done it right, if you have met the right people, and if you have nurtured them the right way, then you can essentially leverage those people into your network and get the benefits you were hoping for. So remember, we said in the previous section, the point of networking is to make a sale, get a job, advance your career. That's not going to happen when you meet people. It might happen when you're nurturing people, but you really have to get to this third stage. So networking is a long-term process, but if it's done right, it pays off in the end. So to me, the concept of networking is from beginning to end. It's not the initial meeting. It's really about how do you get the benefit of it at the end of the day. And that's where all the effort is worthwhile. So now we're going to talk about the thing I assume you're all here to really learn, which is how to network. And so, we're all used to meeting people. We've done so ever since we were infants. In many cases, that's all part of our job. But there's a lot of misconceptions about how best to do it. And so, as Ryan mentioned in the introduction, I do have an approach to networking. It is iconoclastic. I will warn you right now. I think there's a lot of conventional wisdom about networking that I do not agree with. And I think it needs to be looked at in a different way. But so stepping back for just a second, in order to network properly, you need a strategy. Right? Why are you networking? What are you hoping to get out of it? Who are the people that you should be networking with? So that you have a game plan the same way you would if you were playing a sport or doing any other real endeavor, right? Even cooking, you need a strategy. Once you have a strategy, then you need a plan, okay? What am I going to do? What are the steps that are involved? And then how am I going to execute the strategy that I've put in mind? So for example, with networking, it's what events do I want to go to? What kind of people do I want to meet? What do I want to say to them? Excuse me. And most importantly, I think, is what do I want to get out of my networking? When I meet all these people, I nurture them and I leverage my network. What is it that I want to leverage them into, right? Is it making a sale? Is it getting a job? Is it just advancing my career? So step one is you need a strategy, the grand picture of what you're doing. The second is the plan, the steps that you're going to take. And the third element is the tips, tricks, techniques that will make you an effective networker. So I think if nothing else, hopefully from each of these sessions, you will come away with some ideas and concepts that you can try the next time you meet somebody. And that could be, as soon as you're done watching this video. So what we want to do is give you really actionable tips, tricks, and techniques that will make you a better networker and make it more fun. So that's the game plan. So today we're going to focus on the strategy and the plan, and then we'll talk about that in more detail in future sessions. But what we really want to focus is on tips, tricks, and techniques so that you can use these actionable items to become a better networker. So before we talk about how to become a good networker, since everybody likes to watch a car crash, everybody likes to think about disasters. So let's talk about bad networking, and then later we'll talk about good networking. So I know a lot of people hate the idea of networking, like we talked about before, right? They dread it, they don't want to do it, and they feel very uncomfortable about it. So, networking can often seem very unnatural and in bad faith, or there's a whole host of other bad things that people associate it with it. But stepping back from that, I think there's two particular reasons why bad networking happens. Reason number one is it's not clear even to you why you're doing it. What is your strategy or what is your purpose? So it's like anything else. If you do something and you're not sure why you're doing it, you're not likely to enjoy it. And even more importantly, I guess, you're not likely to be very good at it. So it's kind of like playing, and I'm a terrible golfer. So if I don't know that the point of golfing is to put that little white ball into one of these 18 holes, then I'm probably not going to be very good at it. So you need a strategy and a purpose. The other reason people, I think, are bad at networking is because then the next step, they don't really have a plan, right? And they don't know what to do to execute the plan. So if you don't know what meetings should I be going to, what networking events should I attend, what kind of people do I want to meet, what should I say to these people, how should I interact with them, how should I conclude a conversation, right? Sometimes it's almost as important to end a conversation as it is to begin a conversation, but both of those can be tricky. Another question is, after I've met these people and I go home with a giant stack of business cards, what do I do with them? Right? Because I've spent all that time and effort and mental brain power. But if I have a stack of cards, I don't know what to do with them, I don't know what I want to get out of them, then again, it's a waste of time. It's been bad networking, and you're just not going to feel good about the whole effort. So now that that's the big picture, let's talk about bad strategies, right? I did say at the beginning that it's important to have a strategy, but let's be honest, it's really important to have a good strategy, or to at least not have a bad strategy. Okay? And I think right now in the world of networking, there's probably two predominant strategies that are out there. One is reciprocity, right? And we all know what reciprocity is, right? Reciprocity is, I'll do you something, and now you have to do something for me. And so there is a lot of that concept out there. And while it can be used in certain circumstances, it can seem very, very transactional. The other problem I have with reciprocity is it can effectively turn you into a pest. So it's like, if I reach out to Ryan and say, hey, Ryan, remember I did you a favor last week? Well, where's my favor, right? You have to do a favor back for me. And by the way, that favor needs to be just as big as the favor that I did for you. So what happens is you create this sense of guilt in people, and nobody really likes feeling guilty. They might do something because they feel guilty, but it will be to alleviate their guilt, which is internal to them. It's not going to be because they want to help you, right? And that's what we're really looking for, is we're looking for help for ourselves. So reciprocity as a fundamental strategy, I think, has a lot of issues. Okay. The other strategy that you hear talk about a lot is the exact opposite, which is the concept of giving, right? You hear about everybody being a giver. And this one I'm not so crazy about either, because to me, giving is like this poor guy standing out in a blank, open field, throwing seed out into the dirt, right? And he's hoping that some of it will land, some of it will get watered, some of it might germinate, some of it might grow, and maybe some of it will even be able to harvest at the end, right? Because if he doesn't have a harvest, he and his family are probably not going to eat. So the concern I have about the giving strategy, as exemplified by this gentleman here, is that it's a little bit random, right? He's just throwing the stuff out there to see what happens. And you do hear a lot of people talk about the expression of, throwing stuff against the wall. It can either be, spaghetti or something less appealing. But again, there's no plan there, and it's a little bit random. You just kind of see what happens. The idea with good networking is you don't see what happens. You want to make something happen, right? You're in charge. You've got a plan, and you want to make something happen because you want to meet, nurture, and leverage your network. You don't want to just throw a handful of grain out onto the dirt. Okay. Then what happens is if you have bad strategies, the other concern I have is about bad networking techniques, right? So maybe you have a good plan, maybe you have a good strategy, but if you do it poorly, that's still going to be a problem, right? So there's a lot of bad networking techniques out there. So I don't have time tonight to tell you through all of them, but just let me give you two examples of things that are very common. So the first is there's the concept of when you meet people, what you need to do is get them to know, like, and trust you. Right? And you do hear this a lot. The problem with this one is that just because you know somebody, some doesn't mean they're going to like you or trust you. Right? And I'm sure we can all think of people we know where the more we know them, the less we like them. So a lot of what we'll be talking about later is how to think about how to approach people and what are the right steps. And I'm saying know, like, and trust is probably not the right way to think about it. The second technique that you hear a lot, and it's so common that people sort of talk about it without really thinking about it, and that is the elevator pitch. So we'll talk about this in more detail in future sessions, but think of it this way, right? A bad elevator pitch is going to leave you feeling like one of these two poor souls in the elevator. And I think it's safe to say that nobody is making a sale, nobody is getting a job, and nobody is advancing his career based on what's happening in this elevator. So those are just a few examples of things that I don't think work, but obviously the focus for these future sessions is going to be on what does work. So for tonight, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to kind of run you through all these concepts. But once we start having these connector meetings that Ryan has scheduled for the rest of the year, we're going to have a lot of interactivity and a lot of people asking questions about what does work, what doesn't work, what they've tried, and what we would suggest that they try next time around. Okay, so that will hopefully be a much more interactive than just watching this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, okay, Victor, what networking strategy, since you didn't like any of those things, what networking strategies are you going to suggest? So my approach is based on the philosophy of that great American networker, Benjamin Franklin. Right? And Franklin's strategy was to create, as you're networking, to create what he called a, quote, favorable inclination. Okay? And so when you boil it down, favorable inclination is basically the same thing that we say to our children or that our parents said to us, which is making friends. Favorable inclination is just a fancy way of saying networking should be about making friends. Okay. And that is the basis of my podcast. So Ryan mentioned the podcast, things I didn't learn at Harvard. And so we teach people how to create a favorable inclination. And the reason we do that, and the reason we want you to think about your network as your friends, is think about how you interact with your friends. And I'm assuming, hopefully, that everybody watching this video or everybody who comes to our sessions actually has friends. Right? Because when we're thinking about doing networking, we start to behave in weird and unnatural ways. Right? I have to give you my elevator pitch. I have to get you to know, like, and trust me. I have to create reciprocity. I have to get you to think of me as a giver, right? And so we have all these conflicting notions in our head that make networking difficult and painful and unpleasant and something we don't want to do. Whereas when we were little kids playing in the sandbox and making friends, it was a lot easier. It was a lot more natural. So that's number one. It's a better, more enjoyable process. But most importantly is you will get out of your network the things that you're hoping to accomplish. And why is that? It's because when your network consists of your friends, think about how you deal with your friends in real life. First of all, you do things for your friends. Secondly, your friends do things for you. Third, nobody keeps score, right? Because you're all friends, you know it's going to wash out in the end. And people tend not to say with their friends, hey, I did you a favor last week. Now you owe me a favor, right? That's just all part of the gestalt. Friends do things for each other. But the most important part of treating your network like friends is that friends do things for you with your best interest at heart. And why is that? It's because they're your friends. They will be straightforward with you. They will be honest with you if you've got the right friends, but also they will help you in the way that you need to be helped. The problem with networking is when we think of it as transactional, is people do things for you just to make you go away or to get you off their back or because they owe you, right? Or because it fulfills their agenda, not necessarily yours. So the key is favorable inclination. In other words, making friends. And that's one of the things we teach on the podcast. So you might be asking, how did I come up with all these crazy ideas? Who is this guy who's on this video talking to you about networking, right? So we'll end this video with just a little bit about me, because I figured this is the least interesting part, so I'll save it to the end. So this is a picture of me. This is actually my favorite picture of me, because the portrait in the background is Charles Schulz, the creator of Peanuts. And so A, I'm a big fan of Peanuts. B, this was taken at the Charles Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa, California. But C, Peanuts is very applicable to the concept of networking. Because if you're a Peanuts fan, the way I am, and you think about the interaction and the dynamics of the cartoon, right? You have Charlie Brown, you have Linus, you have Lucy, you have Peppermint Patty, and all those other characters. Yeah, well, and obviously Snoopy and Woodstock. You can watch the interaction among them because they've essentially built this network of friends, and they're there to support each other, help each other, even though they all have their individual quirks. And that's what life is. Your network of friends are going to have their own, shall we say, idiosyncrasies. I'm sure we all have our own idiosyncrasies, but that's essentially the network that you can create, and that's the one that's going to propel you forward. In terms of credentials, as Ryan said, when I was younger, I used to like going to school. So I went to college at Harvard, and then I picked up a law degree and a MBA from Columbia. Then after that, I decided I'd try out the corporate world. So I went to places like UBS. I was a mergers and acquisitions investment banker. I also worked at PepsiCo. I worked at Disney and Time Warner. And those were all great training grounds. But now I really enjoy being an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, and helping small companies and individuals accomplish the things that they're doing, which often, in the corporate world is a little bit more stifling, shall we say. But sort of out of all these experiences, both the academic side, the corporate side, I've had a number of startups as well. So that's what enabled me to really build not only the podcast, but my approach to networking, which I call the impresario approach to cognitive networking. So as a result of that, I also came up with these 10 crazy rules. I'll admit they're a little bit on the nutty side. And they form the basis of the methodology, and they will also be the basis of the sessions that we're going to have going forward. So each of the next monthly sessions, I'll pick one of the 10 rules, and we'll kind of build the session around that, just to kind of give it a theme and a cohesion. And that will hopefully help us introduce a lot of topics, because let's face it, networking is a really, really big subject, but I think it's a really fascinating and fun one. So just a quick gander. If you're, these are the 10 rules. I won't go through them now, but if you're interested, please come to the sessions, or in the meantime, you shoot me an email and I'd be happy to send you a copy of this and talk you through it. And so here's my contact information: email, LinkedIn, Twitter, podcast, things like that. So hopefully you found this interesting. I hope you found this thought-provoking. And most importantly, I hope this makes you want to come to other future sessions of Batch Connect, whether they are our connector coaching sessions or the other connecting networking meetings that Ryan has set up. And hopefully you get a lot, you join the group, and I'm sure that you will get a lot out of it. So Ryan, that's it for me. Thanks for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to future meetings.
Victor, thank you for putting your socials up here. Follow Victor, check out his podcast. As for Batch Connect, there's upcoming events. Thursday morning at 9 a.m. we have coffee with me, talk about the community, ask me anything you want to know about Batch Connect. On the 11th, we have for the connectors, we have speed connecting. So we're gonna actually do fast 5-minute breakout rooms with everybody in attendance. And then on the 24th, we have more of a open networking, open connecting call with the connectors. So you got to be a connector for that. There's 2 ways to be a connector. There's a monthly plan and an annual plan, and there's 2 ways to join the community. Either join the community, which is free, or you can become a connector. Learn more at batch-connect.com. We're excited that you're taking this journey with us. And next coaching call will be on May 7th at 6 o'clock. Sign up, join the community at Batch Connect, and you'll be on these emails. So with that, I'm going to